The misunderstood species. The Salvaran Empire had ruled the Andromeda cluster for over 15,000 years. Their technological prowess was unmatched. Antimatter-powered ships that could bend spacetime, AI systems so advanced they could predict planetary weather patterns centuries in advance, and weapons capable of rearranging matter at the subatomic level. The Salvarans themselves had evolved beyond biological constraints. Their bodies were seamless integrations of organic tissue and quantum computing matrices. They were, by any objective measure, the pinnacle of intelligent life in the known universe, which is why Ambassador Xalar Voss found himself completely unprepared for humans. "You're suggesting," Xalar said slowly, his silver-tinged eyes narrowing as he addressed the human delegation, "that you discovered faster than light travel because one of your scientists was drinking a beverage and spilled it on her calculations." Dr. Eleanor Chen, lead representative for the United Earth Coalition, smiled. "That's correct, Ambassador." Dr. Kepper had been struggling with the quantum displacement equations for months. The coffee spill obscured part of her work, and when she rewrote it, she made what she thought was a mistake. Turns out, it wasn't a mistake at all, but the solution we'd been missing. The Salvaran delegation exchanged glances through their neural network. Their facial expressions remained neutral, but Eleanor knew they were communicating wirelessly among themselves. The translator implant behind her ear picked up faint traces of their encrypted exchange. Primitive, coincidental advancement, statistical anomaly. Most species, Xalar finally responded, discover FTL through methodical research spanning generations. The Kithra took 800 years. The Vorlon Directorate, almost 1,000. Yet humans stumbled upon it by accident. Commander Jason Rivera of the UEC Defense Force cleared his throat. "We have a saying on Earth, Ambassador. Necessity is the mother of invention. Sometimes constraints and accidents lead to the greatest breakthroughs." The Salvaran ambassador's aide, Tella Nor, spoke up. "Our records indicate your species has only had unified global governance for 73 years, electronic computing for less than 200, and controlled nuclear fission for just over 250. Yet you've achieved space travel capabilities that took other species millennia to develop." "We're quick learners," Eleanor replied with a shrug. The truth was more complicated. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself multiple times. Global wars, climate catastrophe, artificial intelligence revolts. But each crisis had somehow pushed human innovation further. The Salvarans had evolved through patient, methodical progress. Humans had evolved through chaos and desperate adaptation. "We wish to observe your military capabilities," Xalar announced suddenly. Commander Rivera raised an eyebrow. "May I ask why?" "Standard protocol for first contact with spacefaring species," the ambassador replied smoothly. "We've arranged a simulation, a test, if you will." 3 days later, Commander Rivera stood with Eleanor and a small team of Earth's best tactical specialists on the observation deck of the Salvaran testing facility. The massive chamber below them stretched for kilometers, a perfectly controlled environment where various combat scenarios could be replicated. "The parameters are simple," Xalar explained. "Your team will face a standard military challenge. These challenges have been administered to every new species we encounter." Tella Nor manipulated a holographic display, and the chamber below transformed into an alien battlefield. "You must secure the command node." She pointed to a glowing structure at the far end of the chamber, while navigating through Salvaran defensive systems. "What are the rules of engagement?" Rivera asked. "Rules?" Xalar seemed confused by the question. "There are optimal strategies, of course. The defensive systems follow standard response algorithms, but no specific limitations on how we approach the objective." "The objective is the only relevant factor," Tella replied. Rivera exchanged glances with his team. Lieutenant Anna Diaz, demolitions expert, was already scanning the battlefield layout. Sergeant Wei Lin, their tech specialist, was analyzing the Salvaran defensive systems visible on the holographic display. "We accept the challenge," Rivera said. The Salvarans watched with detached curiosity as the human team entered the simulation chamber. According to their probability matrices, the humans would likely employ a standard frontal approach, perhaps with diversionary tactics, a common strategy among newly spacefaring races. Their defensive systems were calibrated to counter such approaches with 99.87% efficiency. What happened next confounded 15,000 years of Salvaran tactical doctrine. First, Lieutenant Diaz bypassed the obvious entry points and instead focused on a maintenance conduit that the Salvarans had considered too small for tactical relevance. Using a plasma torch, she cut through at an angle that stress-tested the material properties in a way the Salvaran engineers had never considered. Meanwhile, Sergeant Lin hacked into the environmental control systems, not to disable them, but to recalibrate them. The Salvaran observers were perplexed. This approach had never appeared in any of their strategic simulations. "What are they doing?" Tella asked, her voice betraying a hint of confusion that no Salvaran had expressed in centuries. The answer came 90 seconds later, when the human team triggered an atmospheric pressure differential that created a directed shockwave. The wave wasn't powerful enough to damage the defensive systems, but it carried microscopic particles that Lieutenant Diaz had scraped from the maintenance conduit walls. Those particles, a particular alloy used in Salvaran sensor technology, effectively blinded the defensive grid for 3.8 seconds. In that brief window, the human team didn't rush toward the objective as expected. Instead, they launched what appeared to be a failed attack on a completely different section of the battlefield. "A miscalculation," Sealer observed. "Their opportunity is lost." But the failed attack had planted a device that began emitting a frequency that precisely matched the harmonic resonance of the command node's quantum security field. As the defensive systems recalibrated from the sensor disruption, the security field around the command node destabilized. Commander Rivera simply walked up to it and placed his hand on the activation panel. Simulation complete. Time elapsed 4 minutes, 17 seconds, the fastest completion by any species in the history of the Salvaran Empire. The observation deck was silent. "How did you know the resonance frequency of our security fields?" Tella finally asked. "We didn't," Rivera replied. "We detected the field's energy signature, and Lieutenant Diaz calculated potential harmonic weaknesses based on its oscillation pattern. It was an educated guess." "An educated guess," Sealer repeated, the concept seemingly alien to him. "You risked the entire mission on probability." "High risk, high reward," Elinor said with a smile. Another human saying. Later that evening, as the Salvaran High Command reviewed the simulation data, a disturbing realization began to dawn on them. The humans hadn't just completed the challenge. They'd approached it in a way that no Salvaran algorithm had predicted. Their strategic AI, refined over thousands of years, had assigned a probability of less than 0.1% to the approach the humans had taken. "They're unpredictable," Sealer reported to the High Command. "Their cognitive processes follow patterns we cannot model with our current systems." Supreme Commander Viridian's holographic form flickered as she leaned forward. "Are they a threat?" "I don't know," Sealer admitted, speaking the 3 words that had not been uttered by a senior Salvaran diplomat in 7,000 years. "And that, Commander, is what frightens me most. The adaptive threat." The Salvaran Ministry of Species Intelligence had been operating for 12,000 years. In that time, it had compiled exhaustive analyses on every sentient species in the known galaxy. These reports were typically completed within a standard cycle, archived, and referenced only when needed for diplomatic or military purposes. The human file had been open for 3 years and showed no signs of being closed. They'd done it again, Director Kovacs announced to the assembled Intelligence Council. The chamber's quantum displays shifted to show a mining operation on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The humans have increased extraction efficiency by 82%, using a completely novel approach to low-gravity fluid dynamics. "What's the concern?" asked Subdirector Marath. Superior resource extraction benefits stable relations. The concern, Kovacs replied, is the rate of adaptation. When we provided humans with basic gravitational manipulation technology as part of our standard cultural exchange, our models predicted they would need at least 30 years to fully integrate it into their industrial processes. It's been 8 months, Mereth realized. 7 months and 12 days, Kovacs corrected. And they haven't just applied our technology. They've modified it in ways our engineers consider innovative. The word hung in the air like an accusation. Innovation was not a Salvaran value. Optimization, efficiency, perfection of existing systems. These were the ideals that had built their empire. Innovation implied imperfection in current methods. It suggested waste and chaos. Yet the humans embraced it with alarming enthusiasm. There's more, Kovacs continued. We've been monitoring their military adaptations as well. The displays shifted to show human warship designs. The vessels were crewed by Salvaran standards, but incorporated elements of Salvaran technology in unexpected configurations. One design in particular caught the Council's attention, a small, agile craft that combined Salvaran shield technology with a uniquely human approach to kinetic weapons. They've created a ship that can temporarily phase its projectiles through our standard defense fields, Kovacs explained. It's not a serious threat to our fleet, but the principle behind it. He trailed off. They're preparing for potential conflict, Mereth concluded. As would any rational species, Kovacs agreed. But their preparations don't follow predictable patterns. They're designing countermeasures to technologies we haven't even shared with them yet, based on theoretical extrapolations of what they've already seen. The Intelligence Council fell silent, processing this information through their neural networks. For a species that had achieved near-perfect prediction of galactic events, the humans represented an unsettling variable. 3 months later, the theoretical threat became practical necessity. The Vorax Horde, a semi-sentient biomechanical collective from the Outer Rim, had breached containment and was spreading through the Epsilon sector. The Salvaran fleet, optimized for known threats, found itself struggling against the Vorax's chaotic, ever-mutating attack patterns. For the first time in 9,000 years, the Salvaran Empire issued a request for military assistance. You're asking us to fight your war? Admiral Helena Reyes of the United Earth Defense Fleet asked, her hologram flickering slightly in the Salvaran High Command chamber. We're asking for tactical consultation, Supreme Commander Viridian clarified. The Vorax represent a threat to all sentient life in this quadrant, including Earth. Yet your fleets are vastly superior to ours, Admiral Reyes noted. What could we possibly contribute? Viridian hesitated before responding. Unpredictability. And so began the most unusual military alliance in galactic history. Human tactical advisors were embedded with Salvaran fleet commanders. Earth's best scientists worked alongside Salvaran engineers to develop new countermeasures. The results were immediate and dramatic. Human guerrilla warfare tactics, considered primitive by Salvaran standards, proved remarkably effective against the Vorax. The human concept of asymmetric response, deliberately using suboptimal but unexpected approaches to confuse the enemy, threw the hive-minded Vorax into disarray. But the true turning point came at the Battle of Proxima Centauri, where a joint human-Salvaran fleet faced a Vorax armada 3 times its size. Captain Maya Santos of the UEC vessel Indomitable faced a difficult decision. The Salvaran battle plan called for a coordinated retreat to more defensible positions, a logical strategy given the overwhelming Vorax numbers. But Captain Santos saw an opportunity in the chaotic nature of the Vorax attack formation. With respect, Fleet Commander, she addressed the Salvaran commander, I propose an alternative approach. The battle simulations are clear, the Salvaran responded. There is a 92.7% probability of defeat if we engage directly. Your simulations don't account for this, Captain Santos replied, transmitting a hastily developed battle plan. The Salvaran commanders were horrified. The human plan called for deliberately sacrificing a quarter of the fleet's ships, sending them on suicide runs into the heart of the Vorex formation, not to destroy the enemy directly, but to create a pattern of explosions that would disrupt the Vorex's hive-mind communication. "This is madness," Fleet Commander Terrius protested. "The loss of life. The ships will be unmanned," Santos explained. "Automated, and if it works, we save millions of lives across the sector." Against every protocol in 15 millennia of Salvaran military doctrine, Commander Terrius approved the plan. The Battle of Proxima Centauri lasted less than an hour. The unmanned ships, reprogrammed by human and Salvaran engineers, exploded in a precise sequence that created a cascading disruption through the Vorex neural network. In the ensuing confusion, the remaining fleet executed a pincer movement that fragmented the Vorex armada into isolated pockets, which were then systematically eliminated. Total Vorex casualties: 97.8% of their force. Total Salvaran human casualties: 24.3% of material, 3.5% of personnel. A victory beyond anything the Salvaran battle simulations had predicted possible. In the aftermath, as the joint fleet regrouped and began repairs, Salvaran High Command convened an emergency session. The recorded debate lasted for 72 hours, the longest strategic discussion in their history. The conclusion was unanimous. Humans represented both the greatest potential ally and the most significant potential threat the Empire had ever encountered. 6 months after the Vorex threat had been contained, Ambassador Xalar Voss found himself back on Earth, standing before the United Earth Coalition Council. This time, his demeanor was markedly different: less condescension, more careful respect. On behalf of the Salvaran Empire, he began, "I am authorized to offer humanity a formal alliance treaty, not as junior partners, as is our standard protocol with newly spacefaring species, but as full strategic equals." The council chamber buzzed with murmurs. Dr. Eleanor Chen, now council president, leaned forward. "That's a significant departure from your usual diplomatic framework, Ambassador. May I ask what prompted this change?" Xalar chose his words carefully. "The recent crisis demonstrated that our civilizations complement each other in unexpected ways. Your species possesses qualities that we find valuable." "You mean our unpredictability," Commander Rivera, now Admiral Rivera, stated bluntly. "Among other things," Xalar acknowledged, "our analysts have a saying now: when the problem defies optimal solution, consult a human." It's meant as a compliment. Eleanor smiled. "We accept your alliance offer, Ambassador. And we have a human saying that might interest you: the most dangerous weapon is the one you don't see coming." "Indeed," Xalar replied, his silver eyes studying her carefully. "Which is precisely why the Salvaran Empire prefers to have humanity as an ally rather than anything else." As the formal proceedings concluded and the treaty was signed, Supreme Commander Viridian received the update via quantum communication in her chamber on the Salvaran homeworld. She reviewed the terms with careful attention, then authorized final approval. Afterward, she accessed a secure file that only 5 living Salvarans had clearance to view. It contained the complete strategic assessment of human potential over the next 1,000 years. The conclusion was simple and terrifying. If the current rate of human advancement continued, they would surpass Salvaran technology within 3 centuries. Their unpredictable nature made them impossible to control through conventional means, and their history suggested a troubling pattern of internal conflict, followed by explosive growth. The recommendation was equally simple: maintain alliance at all costs, guide human development where possible, and prepare contingencies. For the first time in 15,000 years, the most powerful empire in the galaxy found itself afraid of what the future might bring. Not because of what they knew about humans, but because of what they couldn't predict.